Hey book dragons, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to talk about why I think you should read Dreamer and Muse by Laini Taylor. Let's go. Back at the end of 2022, I read Muse of Nightmares by Laini Taylor. This is the second book in her duology, which starts with the book Strange the Dreamer. And I'm here to tell you all about why I think that you should read this amazing duology. But before I do, please like my videos, subscribe to my channel, hit the bell notifications if you want to get notified when I post new content. I post every Tuesday and Friday. Make sure that you're not missing out, okay? So let's go ahead and talk about these books. And first of all, I want to make a disclaimer. Everything that I have found on the internet just calls this the Strange the Dreamer duology. And if I'm being honest, I think that's kind of lame. Maybe that's an unpopular opinion, I don't know, but that doesn't really roll off the tongue very well. The Strange the Dreamer duology. So, I am referring to this as the Dreamer and Muse series. So you've got Dreamer and you've got Muse, and so I'm calling it Dreamer and Muse. That's what I'm going to call it for the remainder of this video. It's not official. It has not been called that by the author. I'm just putting that out there, okay? I have heard so many good things about these books for the longest time, and it was finally time that I found out for myself whether or not it's great. We're going to start out talking about the setting of the book, and this is set in two primary locations. It is a fantasy world, and it is set in the world of Zosma to start off with, and then the majority of the series takes place in the mysterious forgotten city of Weep. Weep is not the name of the city, but that is what everyone calls it because the name of the city has been expunged. Nobody can remember it because the name is just gone. It's vanished. And you will find out more about that as the story goes on. And you may even find out the name of the city, the actual name of the city. So now let's move on to the plot of the story. One of the main characters of the story is Laszlo Strange. He is an orphan raised by the administrators of the great library of Zosma. He is trained in the arts of being a librarian. He knows where all the mysterious tomes are that catalog certain histories that are forgotten. And along the way of learning his job and growing up in the library, he has amassed knowledge of the ancient forbidden city, of magical creatures and gods and powers that no one has explored for many, many years. He is kept like a little journal of sorts, almost like it reminded me a lot of the Grail Diary from Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. He's kind of kept this running history of this mysterious city who no one really knows the name of. They just always call it Weep. And he has spent so much time amassing this knowledge that it's become an obsession for him. He is determined to find some way to get to this forgotten city and to find out more about it, to experience it for himself. And he has even run across a formula that can help create gold. He encounters this other character who is a philosopher and a scientist and is trying to figure out the formula for gold. And Laszlo is a pretty naive guy, so he shares what he's discovered, and the guy becomes rich off of his ability to create gold. Eventually, just out of the blue, a delegation from the city of Weep travels to the city of Zosma to find people who can help them with reclaiming their city. And what they're really looking for is someone who can help them move this giant floating statue that is blocking their sun and really taking over their lives. But they don't have the resources to do it, and so they know of the great library of Zosma with all this vast knowledge and everything, and they come to Zosma in hopes to assemble a team of people to help them figure out how to move this statue and get on with their lives. It's just really, really interesting, the things that happen when they come to the city of Zosma. And of course, Laszlo is transfixed by it. All of the things that he has discovered in his studies, he's all of a sudden seen come true. He is just this kind of loner guy who seems to not mean anything to anyone. He figures out a way to get his name on a list of people who are going to the city of Weep. He becomes part of the crew, and it's just really neat to see how it happens. And all of this kind of happens at the beginning of the story, and then the majority of the rest of the two books, we focus our time in the city of Weep. So Zosma, I would say, is probably maybe 10 or 15% of the story, and then the rest of the time we spend our time in Weep. The delegation from Weep is led by Errol Fane. He is famed as the God Slayer. He has, at one point in his past, slain a bunch of gods who were enslaving the people of Weep. And so he's a very famous figure and well loved by the people of Weep. And when this delegation comes to Zosma, he's just very much at the forefront. He's this very commanding figure, very powerful in his presence, and even Laszlo is just kind of in awe of him. But it turns out that as a result of killing these gods, Errol Fane has created other problems as well. Now, let's talk about the characters and the magic system. And the characters and the magic kind of go hand in hand, so I'm going to combine them. We do, of course, have Laszlo Strange. He is known as Strange the Dreamer because he always seems to have his head in the clouds, always immersed in his books and imagining and thinking about what the city of Weep might be like. Yet, his dreams are the kind that you almost feel like you're there, and that comes into play later in the story. There's also Theon Nero, who is the scientist that basically takes credit for Laszlo's discoveries about how to make gold, and he has also commandeered Laszlo's books that he's written on the city of Weep. And he is basically the godson of the queen, and he's never wanted for anything. He's always had access to money, and he's always been used to a certain position in life. We also have Errol Fane, who I mentioned before is the God Slayer, and he's more or less the ruler of the community that lives in the city of Weep. And he at one time was a slave to the gods in Weep. Errol Fane snapped out of it, I guess, at some point, and realized that they were in danger and thought it best to destroy the gods. And so during that time, there were children who were born to the gods, and there were a few of those children that escaped the genocide. And so some of those characters are now still alive. Errol Fane does not know they are still alive, but they are still alive, and they are some of the main characters in the book as well. And this is really where the magic system comes into play. One of the other main characters in the story is Sarai. She is known as the Muse of Nightmares, and she has the ability to alter and manipulate people's dreams, specifically their nightmares, although realistically she could manipulate their regular dreams as well, but she's kind of grown up only knowing how to manipulate the nightmare side of those dreams. There's also Farrell, who is able to control the weather. There's also a character called Sparrow who can control growth and decay. And Ruby can manipulate fire, and she can cause things to burst into fire, and she can become fire herself. She can turn into flames by herself. And then we have Minya. Minya is a adolescent girl who can control the spirits of the dead. So she can capture the spirits of the dead on a tether and keep them at her beck and call to do things for her and to carry out tasks and to attack other people if they need to. So she has quite a powerful gift. And Minya has never quite grown up because of some issues surrounding the genocide, which she personally witnessed. So she is just a really fascinating character, and to see her character arc and growth come about is really, really heartwarming as well. So as you can see, all of the God Spawn, and they're called Mesarthim, have different abilities based on how their body reacts to this unique metal called Mesarthium. Some of them can manipulate the metal itself and cause the metal to do different things and react different ways, and there's various different abilities that each of the Mesarthim are given based on how they react to the Mesarthium. So I want to explore real briefly some of the themes that are in this story. Self-discovery is a big one, especially for Laszlo, but for other characters in the story as well. Trauma is a big focus of this book because all of the God Spawn specifically are beset by traumas from the genocide, but a few in particular are. Hatred is explored very strongly in this, especially with its revenge counterpart. Stereotyping is also a big theme that I feel is explored in this story. Not only racial stereotypes, but just stereotypes about the type of people that certain characters are. The Mesarthim do have dark blue skin. That is one of their defining traits. The dark blue skin denotes a god or a god spawn, and because they are labeled as god spawn, they are automatically seen as evil and something to be feared. And yet, as you learn throughout the story, these god spawn are normal kids and teenagers who unfortunately just happen to be the spawn of some really evil people. And so it was really neat to see that explored in this story, because it really shows how you can't label people based on their ancestors and their families and stuff like that. Everybody is different, even despite the way that they were raised and the people they were raised by. So I thought that was really well done in this book. And there is a change that takes place with Laszlo toward the end of the first book that might make him easily hated by the people that he's been around all this time, but because they have gotten to know him and understand him on the journey to Weep, and then seeing his actions and his motives, they end up being perplexed because everything that they know about him flies in the face of the things that are happening once the change takes place. And I won't go into any more details on that because it's a huge spoiler. All that to say, I thought there were some really, really high quality themes that were explored in this book. It is commonly known as a YA story, and I can definitely see that, but I think a lot of the themes toe the line between YA and adult. This is a book that can be easily enjoyed by adults as well as young adults. So let's move on to the prose of the story. It's a fast-paced story with great characters. The character development, especially for Laszlo Strange and for the God Spawn, the character development was out of this world. We got to know a lot about Errol Fane as well. So yeah, the character development was really well done. The themes were woven very well into the story. It felt seamless. It didn't feel like an agenda was being pushed. It just felt very natural, and I like that about the story. It has a very unique magic system, and the action and the story are very well paced. I didn't feel like parts of it were really too slow for me. I didn't feel like it was moving too fast. I felt like it was a very well balanced pace for the story. So now let's talk about some of the cons. I think for me, there are two that really stick in my mind. One is that there is a point in the story where it becomes clear that there are alternate universes aside from the universe that Zosma and Weep take place in. And while there was a little bit said about it, I feel like I would have enjoyed hearing more about those alternate universes. Maybe the books could have been a little bit longer to delve into that and exactly how it plays out in the story. There was enough information given, it was fine, but I really would have liked to know more. And maybe it really had no bearing on the story at all. And then that's fine. But if it really had no bearing on the story, I'm kind of curious why it was included, right? So there was enough information given. There was a little bit of interaction with some of the alternate universes, but I think I would have liked to explore it more. And at the end of the book, I will say there is a slight hint that there might be more stories to tell in this world. It wasn't super clear, but it seems like the author might be leaving it open for the future. It is still a complete story on its own. It has a satisfactory ending, but it seems like there could be a little bit more. So maybe we'll get more about the alternate universes in a different series of books or something like that. The other thing that kind of bothered me is there is one character in particular in the story who has a very life-affecting dilemma that I don't feel ever really gets resolved like it should have been. And I'm going to leave it at that because it would be spoilers. You'll find out toward the end of Strange the Dreamer what that is, so I'm not going to go into details there, but I wish it would have been resolved a little bit different way, and we'll leave it at that. But the story itself was resolved very well. I felt satisfied at the end of my journey, and these were some of my favorite books of 2022. It made my top 10 list of 2022. Both books did, actually. I put them in a specific spot together because I couldn't figure out which one I liked better. I really couldn't, because it's one complete story. They go together so well that I couldn't say, oh, one is higher than the other. It was an amazing story together. So that is what I have to say about that. Have you read these books? How did you enjoy them? I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Feel free to hit me up on Discord as well if you want to send me a message, or if you want to start a thread on Discord, include me in it. I'd love to talk more about it. I'm just really, really impressed with how well these books were done. I don't know that I'll read more books from Laini Taylor. I might, because I really like her style and I like her storytelling. So I'm definitely curious to explore some of her other books. Whether or not they're for me, I don't know, but these definitely were. As far as my ranking for these books, they soared for me. These were absolutely must-own books. I have the physical books, of course. They are going to stay physical books on my shelf. That is how much I love them, and I highly recommend them to you if you have not read it. Let me know in the comments below as well if you are more interested in reading it now if you have not read them currently. So thank you for sticking with me through this review, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Make sure you read more books. I'll talk with you soon.